First things first, Clippers doing what the Clippers do last night, the old comeback. Did we write them off too soon yet again? Bucks on the verge of the finals, but have all the injuries to their opponents taken away from Giannis' shine. And are you sitting down, Nick? Here's my question. Is Josh Allen more physically gifted than Patrick Mahomes? One NFL insider thinks so.
Ooh, yes.
Good Tuesday morning,
yes.
everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Nick, I'm going to assume that insider is not you, buddy.
No, it's not me, but it's very interesting for a guy so physically gifted to have never beaten Patrick Mahomes. You'd like to see him win. You know, just win, maybe win once. Beat him once. Maybe,
yeah, but
I don't know.
Hey, listen, NFL, not for long. What have you done for me lately, Nick? What have you done for me lately?
There it is.
He just
We'll get to
beat
that
him
in a second.
in the second to last game of the season. Go ahead.
I don't remember. I don't recall.
You know where we start this morning. Game 5, Western Conference Finals last night. Clippers down 3-1 to the Suns. That's your team. Both of them are your teams, Brandon. Clippers facing elimination yet again. And Paul George said, oh, not on my watch, you know. PG-13 with a night to remember. How about his stat line? 41, 13, and 6. And 30 points in the second half. As the Clippers get a win they needed to get, they force a Game 6 back in L.A. in front of their home crowd Wednesday night. After the game, Playoff P was asked about the criticism he's been getting this postseason. If he thinks he's singled out more than any other star. Take a listen.
I do, and it's the honest truth. It's a fact, but I can't worry about that. It's comes with the job, I guess. But you know, it is what it is. You know, I still try to go and dominate, whether I'm shooting the ball well or not shooting the ball well. I still try to dominate just the whole game in general. To me, it doesn't come down to just scoring. It's just being able to play both ends, rebound, and make plays for others. And so I'm beyond that. You know what I mean? I'm beyond that. I am who I am. I wish I could shoot 80%, 75% on a nightly basis. But it's not realistic. But what I can do is do everything else. And so it is what it is. They can judge me on what they want to. That part don't matter to me. I'm gonna go out there and hoop and give everything I got.
Paul George keeping it real right after that win. Brandon, what did you make of Paul George's game and also of his comments afterwards?
Well, the game was super impressive, right? Could possibly go down as one of the biggest moments of his career if he goes out there and get it done. I don't see them getting it done coming back against this team. I thought CP3 was going to do more in an elimination game. He didn't. But as far as his comments, I disagree with them. You know, you're in the big boy league right now, right? NBA, NFL. That's what comes with the territories, the criticism. He hasn't performed at a high level in those key moments. We're talking about when the game is on the line or the season's on the line. So that's what comes with it. Now, has the media gone too far? Absolutely. A lot of times we place these professional athletes in these bubbles and we approach them or we talk about them as if they're invisible or if they're superheroes, but they're not. They're human just like everyone else. They bleed just like everyone else. So it has gone a little too far, but there's so many other people out there that have carried this torch, sat in this position, sat on this platform and been criticized a little bit too far. LeBron James is one of those guys. And then you go to the NFL, there's so many. You got Lamar Jackson. He's experiencing that now. Colin Kaepernick. So I can go on and on and on, but let's put that to the side because I love how he's taking this this moment right now and ascending to another level because you got guys out there like Ben Simmons who when the lights is on, you know, he's afraid to fail in front of people. And then you have Giannis on the other end of the spectrum like, listen, guys, I hear what you're saying, but I just absolutely don't care. I'm going to continue to shoot the three. I'm going to continue to go to the free throw line and take 15,000 seconds. So he's right in the middle where he's up and down, but he's pretty much playing good ball. So Nick, look, at the end of the day, I'm good because my two teams are going head to head, and they're listening to me. The Clippers. I know I picked the Clippers early on. I got off on them a week ago.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. It was a strategic play. That's what it was. I know these guys watch our show. I know you're a friend of Ty Lue. I know he criticizes you when you get a little too hard and you're down on the Clippers. So my position has always been, if I crush them, they will overcome.
See, I thought you were going to go a different direction. Leave Brandon on camera if you could. I thought you were going to go the Brandon Marshall that abandoned the Clippers. That was hair tied back, tight brain Brandon Marshall. This is now free and loose. Hey, I'm going to be my true self, Brandon Marshall. Forget the corporate censors trying to get me to put my hair back. This is you're getting House of Athlete podcast, Brandon Marshall, and I'm going to give you the real. And I never fell out of love with the Clippers. That's where I thought you were going to go. Instead, you went motivation, which works as well.
Strategic.
All right, let me say this about Paul George, who Kevin Wildes, our dear friend Kevin Wildes, has been trying to do a one-man campaign nationally for give Paul George his credit, give him his love, stop picking on Paul George.
Right.
Last night was the single greatest playoff game of Paul George's career. And previous to last night, the single greatest playoff game of Paul George's career happened a week and a half ago. Game 5 against Utah in Utah when everyone thought the Clippers were dead in the water. When it was announced Kawhi was out, he was spectacular. He was even better last night. This postseason, despite all the injuries, we have had a half dozen iconic performances. Dame's 55-point game, Kawhi's Game 6 against the Mavs, Luka's Game 5 against the Clippers, Games 5 and 7 from KD, Game 7 from Giannis. Paul George's game last night is right in line with those performances. Not quite the KD or Giannis games, but damn close. And it was for a guy who in this series, I laid it out yesterday, was shooting 35% to not only do what he did, but do it as efficiently as he did it, was a remarkable turnaround from a team, from a player on a team who's had nothing but remarkable turnarounds. And I know we're going to talk about, the big picture stuff, but in the minutiae, there were a couple moments in this game, Wildes, where it looked like, okay, this is where the Suns have walked them down and are going to take over. The Suns took a 62-61 lead early in the third. How did the Clippers respond? 10-0, boom. The Suns then, late in the fourth, after being down by 13, got it to 98-94. And before you knew it, the Clippers were back up by 14. So every time they had to answer, every time that crowd in Phoenix Wilds was ready to, explode and have the coronation to the finals start, the Clippers answered. And almost every time Paul George was right at the center of it. So he deserves massive credit. Massive credit for how he played yesterday and for the fact that his team is still playing when most of us didn't think they would be.
Yes, it's been a great day for the Paul George fan club. And granted, I'm getting a lot of letters in, but right now it's just me. So we've got plenty of room on the Paul George bandwagon. So here's the rules of being on the Paul George
I'm with you. Don't forget about me.
You've got several memberships scattered throughout the league. So sure, we'll invite you as an auxiliary member, but I'm not going to put you on the board. I'm not going to put you on the board. Just a lot of conflicts of interest for you, but it's okay. All right, so here's the first thing about the Paul George fan club. You have to acknowledge just the truth. And Boogie Cousins was like, I don't know where this is coming from. You're ripping one of the greats. Like, okay, well, it's coming from the fact that the most games shooting 25% or worse in the playoffs history of the NBA. Paul George got 11. Now, the plus side of that is there's a lot of guys also on that list who are great, who are there. Russ is on it, Harden's on it, Iverson's on it, Pippen's on it. Like, sure. But Paul George is sort of the king of the mountain. So there is some warranted criticism. So now that's been addressed. However, Nick, look at this graphic of some great players who are putting up 20 points. 18 straight games. It's Paul George, it's Durant, it's Kobe, and Jordan. Now look, am I swinging the pendulum pretty far? Yes, obviously. But I'm trying to make a point. The Paul George criticism is unwarranted in its extremes. And Brandon, I know you said it's traditional media. I think it's mostly social media. I think people like getting their jokes off and they look around for targets. It's like, let's take shots at Paul George.
You're probably right there.
The guy is playing great. The question is, if he can win these next 2 games, I think you have to bury all the way off-piece stuff forever. If they can pull it off. I don't know if they can.
Well, you
we've
can't.
seen the Clippers come back and back and back. But go ahead.
You can. It would be a part of. It's a part of his story. It's like LeBron James, right? Like the first couple years before, he went down to Miami, took his talents to Miami. We can't ignore that, and that will be a part of his story. He needed more help, and that's the same thing for Paul George. This will be a part of his story. But before we go, Nick, I just want to say great job to Ty Lue. So all this talk about Paul George,
true.
You got to look at the people surrounding him. So on one end, he talked about his sports psychologist in the bubble. So they're working on things there. And then you got a guy like Ty Lue, who Paul George acknowledged last night. He said, he basically came to me and said, F them, talking about the haters. And so there's guys that give you tough love. And Ty Lue seems to be one of those guys that's willing to cross the line whenever he has to get his guys to move, whether it's LeBron James or if it's PG-13. He's telling this dude, F them, go. And you saw it last night. There was moments in the game where Paul George tried to fade away and let others get involved. And you see Ty Lue yelling and screaming out like, go get the ball. The offense is going through you. So shout out to Ty Lue for just being a phenomenal motivator and coach, man.
And that's not even to mention the X's and O's adjustments. They lose another guy, a starter who had just Zubac's played the most minutes of his career in Game 4 or Game 3, one of the 2 games, and all of a sudden he's right before the game scratched, and Ty Lue finds the adjustment. With Greg Popovich almost notwithstanding, Greg Popovich is the best coach in the league emeritus. He just gets that title until he retires. Ty Lue has a really strong argument that he's next man up. Eric Spoelstra's got an argument. There's a couple other guys. But Ty Lue is making a case this postseason. Kerr certainly has an argument. Like, there's a handful of guys. But Ty Lue, after having to sing for his supper to even get a coaching job after he left Cleveland, he is now, without question, one of the 5 best coaches in basketball and in the argument for the best coach in basketball, Jenna.
Nick Wright, the only man in America to use minutiae and emeritus in the same segment. Love you, buddy, so
thanks,
much.
Jenna.
All right, let's switch to the East. What does the injury to Trae Young say about Giannis? This is First Things First, Tuesday morning.
I'm going to surprise people on this one.
Deja vu for the Clippers, who started the Western Conference Finals in an 0-2 hole. Same position they found themselves in each of the last 2 rounds. And once again, they are now down 3-2. But that after a monster night from Paul George, 41, 13, and 6 last night in a win over Phoenix. Here is playoff P after the win.
They was going to finish this series off. They was going to have to work for it. And that was just the mentality we came into this. We wasn't going to back down. We wasn't just going to throw in the towel. The fact of the matter is they got to beat us.
I think we'll be ready to go for Game 6. That's a tough loss for us at home with a chance, to clinch to go to the NBA Finals. So, we're going to be ready.
All right, Nick, is it possible that we wrote off the Clippers too soon yet again?
Well, listen, the we is an important article there or pronoun. Because on the show, we have a sports bigamist in Brandon Marshall. So Brandon Marshall is going to, on the weekends, the first and third of the month, go over to the Suns family, tell the kids and everyone how beautiful and awesome they are. And then the second and fourth weekends of the month, he's there coaching Little League with the Clippers. And he's like, no, you're my boy, you're my boy. And you just hope they never end up running into each other. So I can't even look Brandon in the eye on this topic because he's going to be like, write him off. No, I've always loved him, except for, those times I said it's over. Here's where I want to focus.
Nick,
and
hold on, time out, Nick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on.
Time out.
Before you get in, let me respond to that. All right, because I learned from you. I think it was the Lakers we were talking about, or I forget what team it was. But anyways, the point is this. There was a moment where one of your teams was struggling, and you went out there, you abandoned them, you threw them to the side, you said it was over, pretty much. That's what you pretty much said. And then all of a sudden, they came back, they got it done, and you said that was the plan all along. That's what I meant to do. So I'm trying to inspire my team.
And Luka. That's right. Okay, I did do that with Luka.
There you go. So I learned from you.
But once again, right, that is a perfect example because Luka is a part of my secret family. He's my large adult Slovenian son. I didn't have him with my wife. We only talk about it on this show. Luckily, she doesn't watch. It's my secret family. Like you have a secret son's family. All right, but while I let Brandon stew in his disloyalty to the Clippers, I want to throw something in the wilds because I still think the Suns are going to win this series. But here is my concern. How nervous do you think, Wilds, right now, Chris Paul is? And how nervous are those young guys who all look up to him, who all know the story, who all know that last night was supposed to be Chris Paul's moment? The greatest player to never make the finals finally makes the finals. And you heard Chris Paul, if people stayed up to watch at the end of Game 4, the post-game interview, where Rachel brought up 3-1. He's like, I don't want to hear about 3-1. He knows it. He also knows that not only is this his best chance to make the... It wasn't a joke. He was totally serious. And he knows not only is this his best chance to make the finals, it might be his last chance to make the finals. And you have the Game 5 at home. You have a lead, even though it's only 1 point lead in the second half. You'll end up getting, semi-blown out. Then you go to L.A., where the Clippers will be favored. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, boy, what if we're in a Game 7? Who's more comfortable in that Game 7? These Clippers, who have been facing elimination for 6 weeks, seemingly 3 times a week? Or the Suns, who thought this was going to be over? So I still think the Suns are going to win. They're healthier. They're more rested. I think they're better. But the pressure scale is ratcheted all the way up on Phoenix. And I think the Clippers are on a bit of a free roll, which does change things a bit.
All right, so here's the thing. Don't you think just emotionally that this is playing out more storybook for Chris Paul? Like this is the last sort of dragon of the video game level that he needs to come back from slay the 3-1 monster that he was always kind of scared of. He's like, and he got closer and closer and closer. He still doesn't look 100% right like he did pre-COVID, and even then he wasn't 100% right, like with shoulder. So I think where we're seeing sort of a version of Chris Paul that he's sort of trying to figure it out. But Nick, to me, this has to be like Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton doing a little bit more to help Chris Paul. It's got to be a little bit of a team, more of a team effort. I'll tell you who's not nervous if you listen to those post-game interviews, like Monty Williams. Monty Williams, after they lost the other game, he's like, all right, we'll come back. I'm like, okay. Next game, last night he was like, we can't just have the show up mentality. He hasn't really pressed the panic button, I don't think. But I think you are right that the Clippers feel like, Ty Lue, been there, done that. Let's just keep coming back. If Paul George can still have monster performances, I guess they get it done. But I'm with you. I still believe in the Suns.
And because of the Kawhi injury, I think the Clippers know even if we lose, no one's going to criticize us. We've had a successful season. Sure. So, Brandon, I know you probably want to talk about the Clippers, so do both here if you would. I just want to ask you a question as the guy who's been in the locker room. Can you ever feel pressure on behalf of a teammate, whether it's a guy going for a record or a streak, or you know that he's at the end of his career and you've got a lot of time left? Like, is that a thing where Booker and Ayton are going to feel not only pressure for themselves, but on behalf of CP3? I want your take on that, and then do your Clippers victory dance.
That's a great question, Nick. It's almost as if you know me. That's exactly where I was going to go when you start talking about the pressure the other guys may be feeling. I was thinking about my 21 catches, my NFL record, playing with the Denver Broncos in 2010. We're up in Indy. I got Cal Orton leading us. He's at the helm. He's our quarterback. Long story short, I'm sitting around 19. I had no clue what was going on. I had Kenny McKinley God rest his soul, he came up to me, sat next to me. He's like, Brandon, do you know what's going on? And I said, no. He said, you have 19 catches. You're about to break the NFL record. And I looked at him and said, man, why didn't you tell me that when I was at 15 or 16? And then he said, all right, don't worry about it. Go get the record. So anyways, I go up to Josh McDaniels, and I'm like, Coach, did you know this? He said, absolutely. He said, we're going to get you the record. So anyways, I caught a ball. So it made it 20, and now it's time to break the record. And Coach called a little bubble screen, Nick. This is literally like a five-yard pass, okay? Nothing could go wrong. Cal Orton he dirted it. He threw it right in the dirt. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm looking, I'm like, bro, are you kidding me? It's third down. You threw the ball in the dirt. I said, now we have one more opportunity left. So I always go back to that moment when I'm talking about guys performing at a high level when the game's on the line, because Cal Orton, that moment, he understood the importance of that play for me, and then also what that could do for my career, and he threw it in the dirt. And so, yes, Ayton and Booker, it looked like last night they were carrying that pressure. They are the most complete and most balanced team in the NBA, and they've been that the entire year. Why didn't you guys go out there and play your game? And CP3, a lot of it has to do with him as well. He went out there and he was just the CP3 we saw all year. This dude has greatness in him, and we know that. This was a time for him to be aggressive, take more shots, and put up 40. And he didn't do that. And that's the reason why they came out flat, and they ended the game with an L.
No
Brandon,
Clippers
so
victory dance this segment?
Yeah, I'm going to try to get him there. So right now, how do you feel about your beloved Clippers? How alive do you think they are? Because I think the Suns are going to win, but I think the Clippers aren't dead.
Listen, I'm proud that I stood out there, and I was one of the only in the beginning of the season saying the Clippers are going to come out the West. But then Kawhi went down. And yes, I was disloyal, and I abandoned them. Rightfully so. I got a job to do on this show. I got to speak reality. I got to tell the people the truth. And the truth is, they're not going to get it done without Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi magically comes back, then they'll have a chance. But I can't see them winning 2 more games and beating the Suns. Not with CP3 over there. There's too much on the line for him.
By the way, I think today's Kawhi's birthday. I think a big happy birthday to Kawhi. Much more on Paul George and the Clippers teammate DeMarcus Cousins had some words. I don't even think he'll smile. Had some words for all the PG doubters. Take a listen to this.
I don't know where this trolling comes from, where the internet controls the narrative about these players. It's becoming foolish, man. Like I said earlier in the year, that's one of the most special players to ever lace his shoes up. Get this dude his flowers, man. I don't understand the slander. It's becoming quite silly now, right? Respect these players, man. Respect these players.
Back here, first things first, Tuesday morning, we're talking some football. Bills quarterback Josh Allen coming off a terrific season up in Buffalo. Top 5 in passing yards, touchdowns, and passer rating, and he might just be scratching the surface. NFL Films analyst Greg Cosell, who guest wrote Peter King's column this week, had this to say about the Pro Bowler. Josh Allen is the most physically gifted quarterback in the NFL. That is not a bold, controversial take. It is just a statement of fact. The name that often comes up, and rightly so, when the talk is of the most physically talented quarterback of all time is John Elway. Allen is a much bigger man than Elway. Allen is the most intriguing quarterback I have watched and evaluated in all my years at NFL Films. It would not surprise me at all if we soon call Allen the most physically gifted quarterback this league has ever seen. Well, that is pretty bold, guys. Brandon, right. I'll start with you. I know you've been high on Josh Allen. What do you make of this take? Is it spot on? Is it outlandish? Or does it fall somewhere in between?
I think it falls somewhere in between. I think the trick here for this conversation is trying to figure out, what does physically gifted mean? You know, he named a few You have size. Okay, he's a big boy. Speed. He's not that fast, but he can move. And he's also dynamic in the run game, though. And then also arm. And it's not just can you throw it, but it's also can you throw it deep? Can you throw it short? How's your accuracy? You know, the arm angles. You see Patrick Mahomes, he can throw it with his left hand, right hand. He can throw it over the head. He can throw a sidearm. He throws it behind his back. He throws no looks, right? So there's so much to that conversation. Jordan Palmer came out and said that this year. He said, and Jordan Palmer is a guy, if you go back through the last 5-6 draft class, he had the #1 quarterbacks from Trevor Lawrence to Joe Burrow, going back to Sam Darnold, and even Blake Bortles back in UCF when he was highly recruited and scouted coming out. So it's not far off. But you got to include a few other guys in this conversation. Lamar Jackson, but what's the knock on Lamar Jackson is his arm talent as far as accuracy. Can he be pinpoint? Josh Allen, this last year, was a guy that actually stepped into that conversation of being an accurate quarterback. That was the knock on him. Aaron Rodgers, to me, is the #1 guy. Aaron Rodgers is deadly with his feet. God. He's also deadly with his arm. He can do it all. Patrick Mahomes, he's in there. The reason why Patrick Mahomes, Nick, why he won't be a part of this conversation, it's like he walks with a waddle. It's like a penguin. It's like he but we all know about the arm strength. We all know about the... Yeah, but he walks with a waddle a little bit.
He is the conversation.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
If he walks with a waddle. The most iconic quarterback run since Mike Vick's run against the Vikings or against the Packers, pick one of them, was Patrick Mahomes down the sideline, AFC Championship game against the Titans 2 years ago. This is, you're like, oh, we got to include Lamar. I think it's Aaron Rodgers.
It's distracting.
And then, of course, maybe Mahomes. Look, I don't care. Maybe it doesn't look good. This is an outrage. Josh Allen's super physically gifted. No doubt about it. I would like to know the thing he's better at than Mahomes, other than he's bigger. I think Mahomes is a more effective runner than Josh Allen. Now, not at the goal line. Not Josh Allen, because of his size, you can run, veer, you can do some things. But as far as escapability, picking up third downs with his feet or first downs with his feet on third down, I actually think Mahomes is the more effective runner. He also is the most effective passer the league's ever seen and the most gifted passer. So I feel like we're having this conversation about who the best... I was going to use a bad example. I feel like we are talking about Josh Allen as if the guy who the answer to the question is not currently playing in the same conference as Josh Allen, the same age as Josh Allen, and oh yeah, by the way, is undefeated against Josh Allen. And the last game Josh Allen played, Mahomes depantsed him. So I can't believe I'm done. The conversation bothers me. You can have the final word.
He has a Hemi for an arm. Have you ever had a Charger with a Hemi in it? Man, his arm, he has a Hemi in his shoulder. So that's why he's a part of this conversation. And you got to look at his arm talent. You got to look at his size. I don't think he is the #1 guy. I truly believe it's Aaron Rodgers. So if you're going to say, well, what can he do better than Patrick Mahomes, then you got to ask that same question. What can Patrick Mahomes do better than Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is one of the most efficient runners that this game has ever seen. I mean, he just destroys you if you play two-man or if you play man-to-man, you turn your back on him. He knows when to take off. He is sneaky good with running the ball. And then obviously from in the pocket, outside the pocket, the arm angles, he can do it all. Now, Patrick Mahomes does it with a little bit more flair. I think Patrick Mahomes had that over Aaron Rodgers, the sidearms, the no looks. He's just making the game look a little bit more sexy. But I think it's Aaron Rodgers.
Bring your sexy.
Okay, and you know what? I won't even kill the Aaron Rodgers is a fine argument. Josh Allen's not. Go ahead, Jenna.
You know who's not in there? Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's not in that discussion.
Baker is not in there. We're in New England. We're NFL.com's Mike Giardi reporting that Mac Jones is set up for a legit quarterback competition with Cam Newton. One anonymous offensive teammate told Giardi, quote, Mac sees the game the way offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels sees it. Brandon, you played for McDaniels. What does this say about Mac Jones?
Listen, I'm not going to make this a black and white thing. I don't think that's it. I'm going to give this anonymous source who I hate anonymous sources. Come on, put your name on it. I'm going to give them the benefit of doubt. I understand what this is. Cam Newton hasn't thrown for more than 4,000 yards since his rookie year. Cam Newton comes from an old school type of offense, an offense that I came up in back at during my UCF days where it's a number systems. It's 363, so you got a out route, you got a 6 route, you got a 3 route. And you just pick it. If it's 1 high, is it 2? What are we doing? You're throwing to the wide receiver, you're throwing to the tight end, maybe you're doing a check down. And we also know who he is as a runner. He is dynamic. That is his superpower. Mac Jones, he probably does think more like Josh McDaniels. These guys are very cerebral. When I talked to Devontae Smith, I said, what makes this dude different? He said, Brandon, he is the smartest dude on the field. Brandon, he's 10 steps ahead of everyone. That is Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels will come in our team meeting room and say, look, we're playing against the Philadelphia Eagles, Sunday Night Football. This is what's going to happen. It's going to be 3rd down. We're going to be in a 4th quarter. We're going to make it to the fringe era, and they're going to go 0 blitz. Brandon, Kyle Orton's going to look at you. He's going to do this. This is not in our playbook. I just need you to remember to run a post route. I messed up. I ran a slant, and it cost the game. He looked at me like I was the slowest person on the planet. I get this.
Slow
and
blinker.
The offense is super complex.
Blinker.
This offense, slow blinker, you know exactly what it is. Don't be a slow blinker in the NFL. Yeah. And you guys know, I talk about this all the time. Josh McDaniels is so complex. You got 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. That is universal. But with Josh McDaniel, it's 11 personnel. Then we're going to go twist on that. Army, Navy, we're going to go Army Red, Army Wright, we're going to go Zing, Zip, we're going to go Trio, we're going to go Bunch, we're going to go Stack, we're going to go. That's the offense that Josh McDaniels throws out there. That's totally different than where Cam Newton came from, going back to college with Gus Malzahn, and then also Wilds in the NFL with the Panthers. Totally different.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the first thing that you said, Brandon, about the anonymous quote. And Mike Girardi is a great reporter, and I'm in a tough spot here because I do need Patriots information, and sometimes sources do give, good quotes, but this is not one that I want to read. And good job, Mike Girardi. But to the anonymous Patriots player, this reads a little bit like Cam's slander more than Mac Jones' compliment. And Bill Belichick has tried to dead all of that. When he was drafted, it was like, Cam's our quarterback. And everyone's trying to push Mac Jones, Mac Jones, Mac Jones. And Belichick has been steadfast that Cam's the quarterback. Now, does Mac Jones get a few snaps eventually? Maybe Bill Belichick hands the reins to Mac Jones. But until that happens, this is Cam's team. And I want all Cam positivity from Patriots Nation.
And Wilds, you and Brandon hit on the exact thing that I thought about. The reason it feels like Cam's slander is because it's anonymous. You usually don't give anonymous complimentary quotes. If it was Patriots wide receiver X says Mac Jones sees the game great, then it wouldn't seem nefarious. Because it's anonymous, it almost feels like it's subversive for what they're trying to do. So I think both you guys hit on the important point, Jenna.
By the way, Patriots, never too early to mention, host the Dolphins to open their season September 12th. We'll see who's under center for that. All right, let's get back to the NBA.
Want to know.
What does the injury to Trae Young say about Giannis's title run? We'll let you know next. This is First Things First. Time to play a little retweet or delete. Eastern Conference Finals, Bucks, Hawks. Trae Young listed as questionable for tonight's Game 4, just the latest star guard to go down against Milwaukee this postseason. What? You don't believe me? Oh, how about this? Both Kyrie Irving and James Harden both missing significant time. Told you so. Hey, Brandon, are you retweeting or deleting the idea that Giannis's title run is less impressive given all his opponent's injuries?
Listen, no one's more disappointed in 2 of the big 3 going down in Brooklyn. But I'm going to delete this as quickly as possible because injuries are a part of the game now. I'm not singling out Kyrie or James Harden, but there's 2 ways you can look at this. Sometimes, it's inevitable. Professional athletes, people just in general, going to go down. We hurt ourselves all the time. And then on the other side, there's some pro athletes that just don't take care of themselves. You got to do a great job of understanding that your body is a walking corporation. So you need to reinvest, just as is the Amazons of the world, the Apples of the world. You have to conduct yourself that way. Invest in your body, invest in your team, so you can perform at a high level year after year after year like LeBron James. So I'm going to delete this, Nick, because this is a part of the game. Guys go down, and unfortunately, this year was one of those years where a lot of stars went down at the worst time.
I'm going to go a little different direction, Brandon, but you're right. Giannis deserves credit. All the stars going down, not him. He's super durable. He's still playing. And I'm going to retweet it, but tell you it won't actually end up mattering if they win the title. I do think in the moment, people will be like, well, were they better than a full-strength Brooklyn? Just like people are still saying, well, would the Suns have even beaten the Lakers if AD doesn't go down? But I think a title will mean so much for Giannis in this regard. Who are the three players in the league, if Giannis wins the title, who have accomplished more than him? LeBron, KD, and Steph. All three of those guys took a sizable leap right after they won the title. Once they got the monkey off their back of champion, not a champion, oh, he's a champion. Steph immediately wins a unanimous MVP. LeBron comes a vote away from winning a unanimous MVP. KD, I think, took another leap after that 2017 Finals MVP. So for Giannis Wilds, who's under scrutiny, there's questions about him, his overall well-roundedness as a player, I think if he wins the title, we are going to see a better version of Giannis than ever before. So I do think there will be a little extra, how impressive was it? But it won't, he'll validate it by how great he is the following years.
I buy that. I'm going to delete this aggressively, and then I'm going to subscribe to the House of Athlete Instagram page, because what you just heard from Brandon Marshall is what you hear when you first come into House of Athlete, and you're like, well, I don't know if I should train here. Your body is a walking corporation. You have to treat your body like Amazon and Apple. Like, well, okay, I guess I'll sign up. Those are successful companies. One final thing, Jenna, because I went on a rant about ankles the other day, and it's like how frustrating it is that Kyrie twisted his ankle and Trey got his ankle like kind of tweaked from the ref. LeBron. And I was like, how can we fix this? And I was like, maybe I can talk to God and fix ankles. That seemed like kind of a longer path. So I tried to think of a short-term solution. 20 years ago, there was a show called The Life. And it was like an early follow cam show. And Stephon Marbury, to strengthen his ankles, took ballet classes. So Brandon, pro bono, House of Athlete, ballet classes to strengthen your ankle. I know it sounds out of the box, but it was a show, and we had Stephon going to ballet class, and I think it worked. So there you go, ballet class, strengthening your ankle.
Hold on. Wild said we had. Wild, did you just promote a show you created 20 years ago?
I said we had. No, I didn't do the show.
We had.
It was at ESPN, but I was not. It was
still getting royalties. Wild's still getting royalties from his old creations. He's like, you know what was a great show?
Click on
the one I created in 2002.
I didn't do that one. It was a good show, though.
Mr. Anti-Ankles, back to the conference finals out west. Do not look now. The Clippers are right where they want to be, down in a series, staving off elimination. They're in their bag. To be discussed next. First things first. Time now for stories to start your morning, brought to you by Subway. So Paul George had himself a night to remember last night. 41 points to force a Game 6 against the Suns for the Clippers. After the game, Playoff P asked about the criticism he's been getting this postseason, if he thinks that he's singled out more than any other player. Take a listen.
I do, and it's the honest truth. It's a fact, but I can't worry about that. It's comes with the job, I guess. But it is what it is. I still try to go and dominate, whether I'm shooting the ball well or not shooting the ball well. I still try to dominate just the whole game in general. To me, it doesn't come down to just scoring. It's just being able to play both ends, rebound, and make plays for others. And so I'm beyond that.
You know what I mean? I'm beyond that. I am who I am. I wish I could shoot 80%, 75% on a nightly basis, but it's not realistic. But what I can do is do everything else. And so it is what it is. They can judge me on what they want to. That part don't matter to me. I'm gonna go out there and hoop and give everything I got.
All right, Brandon, what'd you make of Paul George's game and also about his comments afterwards?
Really quickly on his comments, look, we talked about this early in the show. I wish we had more time to dive deeper into it, but I disagree. The reason why I disagree, because I think this is the social media era where anything you say, anything you do can be turned into a meme just like that. Hell, Michael Jordan has his own meme, and he embraced that. So, you know, it comes with the territory. But as far as his game, sensational. And as I was watching this, I was thinking about, you know, some of the great players in that moment that they had, or that game that they had, or that play that they had that ascended them to, or solidifying their position in the history of their game, in the history of sports. Go back to 2008. You got Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald, the Cardinals were terrible. I think they were somewhere around 7-5 at one point in the season, and then they went on this amazing run, went to the playoffs, and then they ended up in the Super Bowl. But every single week we were talking about Larry Fitzgerald, how he's now a Hall of Famer. He could potentially go down as one of the greatest receiver of all time if he continues to do this. That was his moment. Hell, he doesn't have to even look far. He looked down on the bench, or you want to look in the skybox wherever Kawhi Leonard is. But go back to 2014. Kawhi Leonard introduced himself to the world. Go back to that series, that championship, that title. He was sensational. Everybody was asking. I know I was, because I was a casual consumer of NBA. But I was like, who is this Kawhi Leonard guy? One of my friends, Michael Rappaport, not the comedian Michael Rappaport, was like, yo, this dude you need to pay attention to. He is next level. And you saw what happened to his career after that. And when you look at this moment, this could be the moment. Kawhi Leonard goes down, and then this dude, when he's facing elimination, have a 40-point game. This dude takes his team to a whole nother level. Now he needs to slay the Suns. He needs to escape the Suns in this series and make it to the next, into the championship. And then we're going to be looking back saying, look, that was that moment. This dude solidified his position in the history of basketball. So that's my take on this. Wow. There's so much more work to be done. And I was also disappointed in CP3, Wiles, but we can talk about that tomorrow.
Okay, Brandon, that's why you are a charter member of the Paul George fan club, and I am accepting applications, and they are coming in fast and furious. You're on board. Charles is on board. He just sent me a picture of his Paul George jersey. But here's the first rule of the Paul George fan club. We got to acknowledge the truth, okay? Boogie Cousins like, I don't know where all this Paul George slander is coming from. It's like, well, I'll tell you where it's coming from, Boogie. Most games shooting 25% or worse. Paul George is in the lead there. Also, Bob Cousy's in the lead. Also officially in the league, but you know, we're not counting pre-merger and stuff from the 1950s. Okay, now Nicholas, this is where I want to have you invited into the Paul George fan club. 20 plus points in 18 straight games. Paul George, KD, Kobe, and MJ. You know you're the show's historian and archivist, Nick. Would you like to join the Paul George fan club now that you see his name right next to some all-time greats? Can I sign you up for a T-shirt and some mugs? I can give you the executive package.
It's funny you ask that, Wilds, because I was discussing this exact thing with my friend Denzel Washington. Not the actor, just a different guy named Denzel Washington.
I have a Michael Rappaport, you have a Denzel Washington.
Exactly right. So here's the thing. Paul George last night, that was the best game of his life. It was an elimination game in the conference finals. He gives a playoff career high, does it super efficient, when efficiency is the one thing he hadn't been doing in these conference finals. And I will give him massive credit. And the way he's answered the bell without Kawhi, I think is really admirable. I also think that the Paul George criticism is unique in that While you mentioned it earlier, the other guys with a ton of critics have a bunch of fans typically to balance it out. Paul doesn't seem to have that. It also, though, feels like Russell Westbrook gets criticized. LeBron and KD get criticized. Paul George gets made fun of. And I feel like that's the difference. And this type of performance and this type of playoff run can end that. Because anyone, like, I'll use myself as an example. Like, I get criticized a lot. Doesn't bother me. But, like, when you guys on the show pretend I'm 5'6", and it feels like you're making fun of me, that feels different. It's like, no, that's wounding. Don't like it. Hate it, actually. And so,
How
like,
tall are
it's
you?
one thing for a guy. I'm wild type. I'm 6 feet tall. Doesn't matter. The point is, it's one thing for a guy to have people criticize him. It's another thing for him to be a meme that people are making fun of. I think Paul George is ending the meme right now, Jenna.
I agree.
Undisputed starts right now. See you tomorrow.